Are you ready?
Fasten your seatbelts.
Drivers, start your engines.
Race activated. Sheer passion. Change the game forever.
Ladies and gentlemen, we give you Racing with Celebs.
Guys, welcome back, sad but true, to our season finale of Racing with Celebs Season 3. The show where we put some of South Africa's top celebrities through their paces and keep you updated on your favorite hobby. Our word for today is bye. Allows a driver to advance to the next stage of a heat or an event without competing when there are uneven numbers entered, commonly used in speedway, drag racing and drifting. This word speaks volumes to this episode of Racing with Celebs. Hello, my name is Donovan Clyde, and today we look back over a period of 12 weeks showing you all the action that took place during Season 3 of Racing with Celebs. Now, during this season of Racing with Celebs, we have seen some of Mzansi's top celebrities battling it out on the track to see if they have what it takes to come out on top, and did they pass this challenge with flying colors? So, if you've missed some of the most action or some of the action, or joining us for the first time, sit back, relax, and enjoy our special highlighted episode featuring some of Mzansi's top celebrities. Let's cross over to my good friend and co-host Johan Sneeman while I get my favorite spot ready for this exciting episode of Racing with Celebs.
Thank you, Donovan. This is indeed a very special episode. In this episode of Racing with Celebs, we will look back to some of the most action-packed racing and meet some of Mzansi's top celebrities. Let's don't waste any more time. Let's go and have a look what happened on this season of Racing with Celebs.
Don't go anywhere. Stay buckled to your seat for more action after the break. Welcome back for the final time this Season 2 Racing with Celebs. In this episode, we're going to be taking a look at some highlights over the course of this year because, well, we've seen celebrities from all different walks of life taking to the track in one form or another, whether it be in a rally car, whether it be on a motocross bike, whether it be on an off-road assault course, or maybe it could have been in a go-kart or even a BMW saloon car. First up, we saw celebrity Tubbsy at the Rally Star Rally Driving Experience with Leon Buerta behind the wheel. Tubbsy took to the wheel like a duck took to water, really. She was very confident immediately out there on track and seemed to be performing very nicely indeed as she received good instructions from Leon Buerta. You can see them out on the stage here, going through that hairpin bend and keeping things on the straight and narrow. And then it wasn't long before Leon decided to take the reins, and after Tubbsy had completed her lap of the course, it was then Leon's turn to show her what it's like at full racing speed. And you can see what an adrenaline thrill it was for Tubbsy here as well. Going through into this right-hand, and you can see just the commitment that Leon was carrying over the course of this one. And then it's when you get onto a straight section, you really get a good idea of the speed that he was carrying as they brush past the trees and the bushes at such a great speed. It must be a heck of an adrenaline rush And you can see Tubbsy there looking pretty wide-eyed over the course of this one. Sometimes actions speak louder than words, don't they? Tubbsy there, she was the star of our first episode of the season. Then next up we saw Altus Theart taking on motocross at the Vartfontein motocross circuit. And whilst he has ridden before out on track, it wasn't always plain sailing for him, unfortunately. Had a few moments over the course of it. Did very well, though, to stay on board the motorcycle for the most part. You can see the rest of the fielders, they came round. Quite dusty out there on track, to say the least. And it was not an easy task for anybody, and this was one of the moments I was talking about there for Altus. Was able to pick up the bike with relative ease, fortunately, and was then able to get the bike restarted and get back out onto track. Meanwhile, there were lots of great squabbles going on further up and down the field. Lots of exciting racing action in motocross, as we're used to seeing, of course. And what an experience it must have been here for Altus as well over the course of this time. I mean, very different to his usual disciplines, and you can see him there having yet another moment out on track and just stalling the bike there. But a good opportunity for him to get out on track. Angela Satole decided to take on go-karting at the Kart Zone circuit at the Zwartkops Raceway. You can see the circuit was wet, though, to start, so they had to wait for it to dry out a little bit before they were able to let the drivers out on track. But the crucial question is, how would Angela fare out on the circuit? Well, that was the question that everybody was asking, and we soon knew that we would find the answer at some point. You can see her out on track. She's on board the number 99 at this point, just squabbling with her fellow competitors. And Angela, well, she's used to being a performer, but not performing out on the racetrack. It's not a place that she is familiar with, and she did perform, though, in terms of her performance, I should say, in terms of the result that she was able to get, was very impressive indeed, given her relative lack of experience, especially compared to some other drivers further up and down the field. And you can see what it meant to her to take the checkered flag there. Then we went BMW racing at the Zwartkops Raceway. Celebrity Demi Lee Moore took to the wheel. She wasn't quite sure what to expect over the course of this one, but we soon found out that she was made of very strong stuff indeed. Going into the first corner behind the wheel of the number 11, you can see there the touring machine, very easy to identify in a field of coupes and saloons. It was always going to be interesting to see how she would fare over the course of this one, coming through into the hairpin and then getting back onto the power very, very carefully. Of course, being on a racetrack, it's just so different to what it's like being out on the road. You've got to spot your braking points, take racing lines, go for the right gaps when they exist. Think about your throttle placements, your turn-in points. It's all really, really important stuff. And well, the drivers there being very respectful, given her relative lack of experience there out on track. And she even made up a few positions at some points as well. As you can hear the engines howling away. One wondered whether her progress would continue, though, over the course of this one, or whether she would begin to slip back through the field as the race did progress onwards. Well, she held her own for the relative most part there, did Demi Lee. And we were all wondering how she was going to get on toward the latter stages as the drivers became a little bit more ready to try and pounce. But ultimately, an experience that she ended up enjoying. Next up, we went to the off-road track at Centurion with Angelique Gerber. Angelique very nervous to be driving this four-wheel drive car, and instead of it being a circuit or a time trial or anything like that, it was dealing with obstacles, which on paper perhaps doesn't sound so much, but as you can see, it certainly wasn't an easy task. This in particular being one of the tasks that she had to deal with, going down this long slope and then back up the other side, managing to control the brakes and make sure the car is kept pointing in the right direction at all times, which, especially when you've got dirt and ruts and mud and rocks and so on to contend with, can sometimes be a little bit easier said than done. Here we can see Angelique out on track, or out on the course rather I should say, going over through the ruts. This one in particular looks pretty gnarly as well, coming through into the water splash. A little bit later on as well was always an exciting prospect for her, but look at this, over this incline. That takes a lot of determination. Always just goes to show that you can do anything if you put your mind to it. Very impressive stuff indeed here from Angelique. This is the water splash that I was talking about, that we're about to head into now, coming down as we go into the right-hander. And you can see this is a bit interesting because it gets so deep, and also, of course, the mud is a lot softer going through there, so keeping up momentum and making sure that you've got the right revs and so on, the right clutch placement is very important. And Angelique Gerber there doing a fantastic job of keeping things on the straight and narrow. You can hear the instructor there just giving her very clear and precise guidance as we come through an even bigger water splash. You've really got a confidence going towards the end of the day.
Oh, it's amazing. It's such an adrenaline rush. Wow.
Next up, we went back to motocross, and Francois Jacobs took behind the handlebars as he got ready to see whether he had what it took to compete at the sharp end of the field. And we waited to see whether he would be able to fight at the sharp end of the field. Altus Thial, of course, finished in 7th position in both of his races, and it was immediately clear that Francois would be a little bit faster owing to his quad biking experience out on track. And as such, he would finish in 5th position in both of his races, putting in some very commendable performances there out on track over the course of the day. Of course, motocross is an incredibly physically intense sport. It absolutely drains every fibre of your being, and you'll wake up in the morning after with muscles aching, knowing that not knowing that you had those muscles to ache, essentially. And it really was a very impressive display of riding skill from all of our riders out on track, but especially from Francois Jacobs, given his lack of relative experience on a motocross bike. We went back to karting then at the kart's own place with Marlies van Wyk. She took to the wheel once again of the number 99, and we wanted to see what she would be able to do out on track. Well, the answer was get caught up in a little bit of strife earlier on in the race, because there was quite a fair amount of contact going on up and down the field. You can see Marlies there just at the back of your shot in behind the wheel of the number 99, but the drivers giving them as good as they got over the course of that race. Lots of exciting battles happening up and down the field over the course of this race. And indeed the two races, it was very exciting. We saw lots of 2 wide, sometimes nearly even 3 wide action as drivers sometimes went a bit later on the brakes and tried to get themselves out of trouble, but not always being able to do so, as you can see. Crucially, a lot drier conditions than we saw earlier on when we were at the kart circuit, so that's good to see. And you can see here as well some good battles taking place, and a few slips and a few slides from drivers up and down the field as well. Of course, rental karting is one of the most affordable sports that you can get into as well. And if you fancy going, well, of course, you can go along with your mates or your parents or your friends or whoever, really, and just go along, go-karting. Although, hopefully, you'll have better luck than this driver. Meanwhile, Marlies van Wyk did a really good job out there on track, not being quite used to it. It's a very physical thing, karting, and you can see her struggling to get the wheel turned at some points there. Next up, we went rallying with Marnie Jackson, back with Leon Buerta at the Rallysar Driving Centre. We wanted to see how he would fare behind the wheel of the Subaru WRX STI. He may have looked a bit bemused during the pace notes, but he soon got to grips with his machinery out on the rally stage. You can see him here putting all of the effort in that he knew how. And it was always going to be interesting to see how he would fare in the passenger seat when Leon Buerta took to the wheel. But doing a fantastic job of heading out on this circuit. You can see keeping it on the straight and narrow at this point. Looking forward to seeing how he will get on in part 3 of the episode, which is going to be coming up in just a few moments' time. Don't forget to join us for a review of more highlights from this season's Racing with Celebs.
Mzansi, new spectacular singles brought to you by Roman's Pizza. Zihamba ngama 1-1. One single large margarita, only $63.90. One single large pepperoni deluxe, only $74.90. One single large 4-in-1, only $94.90. One single large sweet chili chicken, only $98.90. Nizwile. Order online at romanspizza.co.za. We deliver or you collect. Roman's Pizza, best value.
Welcome back to part 3 of Racing with Celebs. If you missed part 2, well, we caught up with a few of our celebrities with their driving experiences out on track. This time we saw Mila Guy taking to the BMWs for the second time this series in the number 11 touring machine, and you can see her out on track racing competitively for the first time. Going through the long right-hander was Mila, a very well recognised name, of course, within South Africa. Household name for some. And you can see her doing a very good job out there on track for the first time. The other competitors playing very, very fairly to her as well. Coming into the long right-handed kink, she was sitting in 3rd position. Would eventually come under a lot of pressure from the drivers close behind there as well. But not relenting to that pressure, and crucially not making too many mistakes out there either as well. Drove very, very nicely out on track, which is easier said than done, especially with limited racing experience, taking the racing line and so on and so forth. It doesn't come second nature to some people. It's something you have to learn and process. And you can see other drivers making their way through very fairly up and down the field. A beautiful day it was at the Swartkops Raceway. A circuit, of course, that plays host to a lot of different racing, historic racing in South Africa, Formula Fords and so on and so forth. An absolute world-class facility. And Mila doing a fantastic job there as well. EFC and UFC fighter Dricus du Plessis then took to the Valkfontein motocross track for the next time in this series, and he did very, very well out on the circuit. Of course, a very fit athlete means that he was possibly able to use his muscle to his advantage. That's not to say he wouldn't have been aching the following day there, of course, but rode very well out there on track. Certainly doesn't have a fear of dropping the bike at all. I suppose if you're in the UFC ring, you probably don't, do you? But did a very nice job out there on the circuit throughout the entirety of this one. And it just goes to show that, well, even if it's not your first discipline, motorsport, or whether you want to try and take up something new, you can always learn it with the right tuition, the right people around you, and of course the right mindset, crucially as well. It certainly can be something that you can start to do and enjoy. And that's the thing about motorsport. It's one of those things that you've just got to start doing, and you've got to see if you enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, no harm, nothing, nothing ventured, nothing gained, of course, but it's always important to give these things a try, I think. And if you're watching this and thinking, I'd really like to get involved, well, of course, things like the rally-style driving experience, they're open to everybody, really, as well, of course, as this karting. Tabasio Kimbule took to the rental karts then. Let's see what he would be able to do out on track. He actually had an entourage. As we come through this second corner, you'll be able to see the number 99 with a very brightly coloured yellow entourage to the left-hand side of the circuit. And we all wanted to see how Tabasio would be able to do out on track going through into this hairpin. He was able to keep things on the straight and narrow. Very nice driving indeed. We ride on board with Tabasio Kimbule here then. Through that left-hander. Looking over his shoulder, looking one way and then the other as his competitors found their way past. Rental karts, of course, certainly not the easiest things to drive on the limits, and well, Tabasio doing a good job of keeping things facing the right way, and he seemed to enjoy his experience, crucially, out there on track as well. That's the thing, a real big adrenaline rush fighting in such close combat.
It was so much fun. I wish I could do this every day. I wish I could do this for a living.
I wish I could do this for a living, don't we always? Janina Oberholzer then was our next celebrity to end up in the rally car with Leon Buerta alongside. She was very nervous actually before she got behind the wheel of this car, so it just goes to show that she had a great amount of courage to even sit behind the wheel of the car, let alone drive it on this stage, and a hugely impressive performance she put in out on this stage as well on the dirt conditions. You can hear that boxer engine throbbing away. as she flicked it through the right-hander. Gritting her teeth as she just tried to keep up to date with Leon's pace notes over the course of the day. Certainly not an easy feat at all, given that pace notes are just so vastly different to what we're used to. On the road, for example, we don't have pace notes in any way, shape or form, and, well, they are a very unique thing in terms of rallying. It takes a little bit of getting your head around. Easy to put it into practice when you're sat watching it on a whiteboard, but when you're sat in the driving seat, it is a very different kettle of fish. A couple of little mistakes made here and there, going wide on a few occasions, but Janina doing a very, very competent job out there on track. But it wasn't going to be all her own way, because then Leon Buerta decided to take to the wheel and scare the living daylights out of Janina as well. Couldn't have it all his own way, and you can see and hear the fear in Janina's voice. She was terrified being thrown around the car that fast, and I think she did half of the course with her eyes closed, to be honest with you. Either that or only making a noise that dogs could hear, sadly. But either way, she seemed to enjoy herself, and crucially, she had a smile on her face throughout. That's the important thing. Leon looking like he's just taking a Sunday drive to the shops. I wonder what happened when he comes to sell this car. One owner, slightly used. Never been raced or rallied, probably. Will be the advert, I'd imagine. Meanwhile, Janina's not worried about that at all. You can see the speed they were getting up to and just how much vibration was coming through the car with that camera wobbling on top. It must be one heck of an adrenaline rush. What an incredible experience for our celebrities they've had throughout this series as well, to be able to go go-karting, to do some motocross racing, some rally driving, some on-circuit driving as well. A fantastic opportunity to see how they'll fare in a completely different discipline. Most of these people coming from the world of show business or radio or television or something along the lines of that, and to change that over to a car or a motorcycle, normally in very difficult circumstances, is no mean feat at all. So it's a testament, really, to these celebrities showing their courage and their bravery to be able to get themselves out on track. But Janina Overholser there, very pleased with that one to conclude the series.
Thank you so much for joining us for another season of Racing with Celebs. Thank you to all our celebrities, sponsors, racetracks and categories for making this season successful. Don't worry, we'll be back on your screen in the near future for another exciting, action-packed season of Racing with Celebs. Till next season, keep safe and take care. God bless. Asya.